All right, good morning, everybody. This is just going to be a video of me kind of rambling about a game I've been working on. So this is an 18 card civilization builder, you could call it. And for those of you familiar with like the Imperium deck building games, so like Imperium Classics, Imperium Legends, you're going to see a lot of similarities here. What I tried, like the idea I had in my head is I want that game to exist, but in a no table needed 18 card format, and it seemed like it could exist. And so I wanted to show you what my prototype attempt at that is looking like. And so what you're going to see is like a mashup of like Imperium mechanisms with sort of the Palm Island resource management and slotting. And I'll maybe go through like a turn or two here to show you how it plays. But essentially you'll be going through the deck a number of times. I was thinking 8, but it might end up being 12 just so you can get a little more out of the game. I don't know. We'll decide how much time that the player needs to get the deck oriented properly. But they all the cards start with a certain orientation up, and then you'll be drawing a hand of 5 here. I'll put these in the back, and you'll be drawing a hand of 5. This is actually not. This is my end game state from my last playtest, so this isn't going to be realistic for your starting game. But so I have these 5 cards in my hand. I can basically your only options are to play cards or end the turn. You don't want to go through. You're incentivized not to end the turn because every time you end the turn, you have to either discard a card that remains in your hand or discard the top card of the deck to the back. And so that obviously cycles through faster, and so you're going to get fewer turns through the course of the entire game, and so that's obviously bad. So we're incentivized to make the best use of the cards that we have in hand. And what you can do is you can just play any of these cards for their effect. That one doesn't have one, but any of these cards for their action, like that one, is simply just draw 2 cards. And to do that, I would discard this and draw up 2 more cards. The game flow is mainly you're doing stuff to get resources. So there's 2 different resources in the game: materials and population. And all of the cards have either some number of materials or population that can be stored, or they have a region silhouette here and the wealth value of that region. So I think I'm calling them territories. So like this is North Africa, this is Macedon. So the general game flow is I'm going to be like some of these cards let you get resources. Here, it's a good example. Discard up to 2 cards, store 1 materials or 1 population for every card so discarded. This is sort of your tax policy. It can go all the way from a grain dole to confiscation. And if I haven't mentioned it already, this is Roman themed. I'm a little bit obsessed with ancient Rome themed games right now, but you'll notice what I did do is I tried to keep the graphic design fairly neutral so that you could plug in different civs. So the idea would be is if I would expand this game, each civ would get its own 18 card deck. I am already toying with ways that I could make this multiplayer, like each of you having your own civ and you're taking turns, and you can, there's a little bit of interaction, but no promises on that. That might be kind of tricky to figure out. But the idea is if this one goes well enough, I would spend the time to do some other civilizations next. But you'll play cards to get cards or to store materials or populations. So like I could, what did this say? Discard 1 card for each, and no, simply store it. So you can store the card that you played, or you can store a different card from your hand. So let's say I really actually wanted materials and not population. So I'll discard that. And luckily I have this card in my hand. And so, yep, I'm going to put that to the back. I'm going to store that as materials. And that stays there until I spend it or until it gets to the front of the deck. Now I can keep playing cards, or I could say, I don't like the cards, or I can't do much with what I have. Then I can end the turn. So let's say I discard that for the end of my turn. I have 2 cards in hand, so then I draw up to 5 again. So resources, as you store them, you can store up to 4 cards going out this way. But, and so that's any combination of population or materials. But you also are going to be conquering different territories. So these blue cards here are territories, and there's different cards that let you conquer. Like there's the, well, heck, this one I just stored is the Roman legions. That is one of the more effective ways to conquer a region. Typically, so to try to make the different resource categories a little more meaningful, typically population you spend to conquer territories, and then materials you spend to what's called develop, and that's just you can take a card up a level. So this would take us up from level 1, Julius Caesar, to level 2, Augustus, and then there's 4 maximum levels. But when you conquer a region, you would pay the appropriate materials or do whatever the card says, and then you get to slot that region back here like this. And then there's other cards that are going to key off of, like, you know, get materials equal to the region's wealth, or they might key off of these keying icons over here. Okay, and then every card orientation has its own scoring ability. So that's this part in the gold here. So 8 victory points if your civ is an empire, 3 if not. But on the same card, this is just simply worth, if we have Gaul and Germania, worth 4 victory points. How about, let's find some other scoring abilities here. Sure, so the aqueducts, 3 if an empire, or the Roman roads, 2 victory points per production card you have at least level 3. This is 1 victory point per 3 culture icons. So these are icons that are just present on cards at the end of the game. So you can see you're kind of trying to spin a few different plates at once and get your deck oriented to the maximal scoring orientation that you can. There's different types of cards. I think there's about 5 suits. So these yellow cards are production. Those usually get you stuff. The blue cards are regions, and you can notice that, like, depending on the orientation, there might be different types of cards on a given card. Red is just an action card. This is your nation card, and you start out as a monarchy. You're going to be abandoning regions and paying some materials to upgrade that to a republic, and then an empire, and then finally a theocracy if you have Constantine out. There's rarely some tag requirements here. If you're familiar with, like, Ark Nova, there's going to be just a handful of these, so you don't have to remember too much. But yeah, to upgrade to theocracy, you need Constantine out. Your nation card is going to have maybe the more robust scoring conditions, and so that's going to kind of decide your strategy. But you do have to work towards upgrading your deck, or upgrading your nation card to this. And then, so this is an idea definitely with inspiration from the Imperium games. You notice some of these have these banners on them. A blue banner means you need, I call it ancient and advanced. So your nation can be these different statuses. There are 2 red nation statuses. That means there's 2, the red ones are ancient, and then on this side of the card, the blue ones are advanced. And so sometimes it's simply like for scoring, we saw some of those, but sometimes you actually can't play the card for its effect unless it is in the appropriate, unless your nation is in the appropriate status. So this one we couldn't play unless we were an empire or a theocracy, and this one we couldn't play unless we were, or we couldn't even conquer this Macedon unless we were a monarchy or a republic. And a lot of times, as you upgrade cards, you're going to see that banner change. So here, in order to play Caesar for his effect, you actually have to be a monarchy. If I upgrade that, then to play Augustus for his effect, I actually need to already be at least an empire or a theocracy. and you can see we can upgrade to the different leaders here. Fall of Rome is kind of a that changes things a little bit. There's a weird build you can go for if you get like Constantinople, Constantine, and Theocracy out. Then Fall of Rome is going to give you some points, but there's some contingencies there that it's kind of hard to go for. I wanted a sort of a go for broke type of build, and that's that included. Yeah, so then this tracks your rounds, and you just keep going around and around, no shuffling. And by the time you get to the end of the timer, then you just keep the cards oriented how they are, and then tally up the scoring conditions. One other thing is, so this is a solo game right now. Like I said, I'm working on maybe some hypothetical. I have some ideas for how this could work multiplayer if each of you have your own deck, or if I make future civs. But I do have a fairly fleshed out idea for how to make it so you can play against really simple bots, and these would live probably on either the hook box or some reference cards that would be included. And it would be basically some simple scoring rules and conditional statements. Like, so if I was Rome and I was playing the Egypt bot would just be like 50 base points plus 10 points per advanced card. And so if you're playing Egypt, then you might want to avoid, upgrading to an empire and having a bunch of advanced cards out, and try to score as optimally as you can with ancient cards. So stuff like that, which hopefully would change the game enough, and then let you feel a little more pushed towards one build or another as you play different bot opponents. So cool. Yeah, I told you I was going to ramble, and I definitely did, but I'm excited about this one. I'll probably get a work in progress page up soon so you can follow progress. Thanks, guys.